Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me again. I am Elizabeth Voss, Editor-in-Chief of Disobedient Media, and I am here to read an article to you once again. The article this time is titled Dyncorp, the private military corporation at the heart of foreign policy scandal. And also, before I begin, I want to also just say that I am aware that the thumbnails are not working on Twitter, and I'm also aware that that there are some white noise issues, and there are a couple of, and that I'm still a bit choppy, and I'm working to address these. I can't do anything about a couple of those right now, but I'm working on it. So I just wanted to let you all know. And I'm hoping that the stream is working. YouTube says that it's starting the stream, but it hasn't told me that it's live yet. So apologies if you hear me speaking just halfway through a sentence. I'm just going to start reading and hope that this is working correctly. If it's not, then I will find out very quickly, I'm sure. Okay, so, and also, yeah, another thing before I start, this was published in March last year. It was published specifically on March 24 in 2017. So, if I reference anything being, quote, recent in the article, then that applies to 2017. So, oh, great. I see that I'm now live, so I will go ahead and begin. Over 10 years ago, Georgia Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney asked Donald Rumsfeld during a hearing on the proposed 2006 Department for Defense budget, "Mr. Secretary, is it policy of the U.S. government to reward companies that traffic in women and little girls? That is my first question." McKinney's query, broadcast on C-SPAN, received few solid answers. McKinney is not the only legislator who has asked questions about the role and funding of U.S. paramilitary organizations. Janice Schakowsky, a Democrat representative of Chicago, was quoted by the New York Times. "Is the military privatizing its missions to avoid public controversy or embarrassment, to hide body bags from the media and shield the military from public opinion? The contractors don't have to follow the same chain of command. The military code of conduct may or may not apply. The accountability is absent and the transparency is absent, but the money keeps flowing." The New York Times article described the essential problem of the government using private contractors like Dyncorp. Outsourcing military missions also lets the Pentagon do things Congress might not approve of. While the Pentagon has secrets, it also fundamentally recognizes that it is a public institution. Not so the contractors, whose first allegiance is to their shareholders. Dan Baum wrote in his 2003 article, Guns for Hire, Dyncorp offers the military an alternative to itself. In addition to its paramilitary endeavors in the field, Dyncorp has placed heavy emphasis on IT. It became heavily involved in the software industry in the 1990s, under the leadership of Paul Lombardi. In 2003, Dyncorp was acquired by, quote, Computer Sciences Corporation, CSC, primarily a software firm which provides services including various cloud offerings, infrastructure as a service, IaaS, private cloud solutions, cloud mail, and storage as a service. Sorry about that, it's a mouthful. Dyncorp's early emphasis on IT, while under the leadership of Lombardi and CSC, may explain part of Cynthia McKinney's question for Donald Rumsfeld. She demanded on record to be told who had received IT contracts at the DoD and other departments which had, quote, lost trillions of dollars. McKinney asked during the Department of Defense budget hearing, quote, "My second question, Mr. Secretary, is who had the contracts? Who has the contracts today to make those systems communicate with each other? How long have they had those contracts? How much have the taxpayers paid for them?" McKinney's question was answered by Ms. Tina Jonas, who refused to give names on the record. Ms. Jonas served as the Chief Financial Officer and Assistant Director of the Finance Division of the FBI before she was nominated by President Bush to be the Undersecretary of Defense at the Department of Defense. She also held leading positions in numerous private companies associated with aerospace and defense. CSC has also been investigated for fraud, with Margaret Hodge describing it as a, quote, rotten company providing a hopeless system. In 2010, Dyncorp International became a subsidiary of Cerberus in a deal valued at $1.5 billion. Cerberus's founder has been described as, quote, a notable backer of Republican candidates who served on Mr. Trump's Economic Advisory Council. However, Republicans like Donald Rumsfeld have not been the only defenders of Dyncorp. A 2009 email released by WikiLeaks reveals Cheryl Mills warning then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton of a possible upcoming Washington Post article. The expose would describe an event where Dyncorp employees had hired a 15-year-old boy to do mock lap dances, with Dyncorp employees putting dollar bills in the boy's waistband, just as they would a stripper's garter. Additionally, WikiLeaks cables described the event in terms of purchasing a service from a child and emphasized strategies to convince a journalist not to cover the story in order to, quote, not risk lives. Although the email between Mills and Hillary Clinton claims no sex took place, the tradition of bakabazi in Afghanistan often involves rape, with the boys sold to the highest bidder. BBC News reports that the most disturbing thing is what happens after the parties. Often boys are taken to hotels and sexually abused. There are many people who support this tradition across Afghanistan, and many of them are very influential. BBC also interviewed a Baka who reported that sometimes he is gang raped. Meanwhile, CBS News reported describing Dyncorp's dancing Afghan boy problem. And I've linked and I've sought every the quotes you just heard me recite are from BBC, as I said, and you can take a look at those articles if you want to get more information about that particular scandal, because there's been a lot of different scandals around Dyncorp. Dyncorp's involvement in another sex scandal with minors while serving in a war-torn country may well have felt like déjà vu for the Secretary of State, considering the infamous Dyncorp scandal in the Balkans during Bill Clinton's term in office. Ben Johnston fired a RICO lawsuit against Dyncorp after he was fired ostensibly for reporting human rights abuses by their employees in Bosnia. In a 2002 report titled Dyncorp Disgrace, Johnston was quoted saying, quote, none of the girls were from Bosnia. They were imported by Dyncorp and the Serbian mafia. These guys would say, quote, I got to do Serbia this weekend to pick up I've got to go to Serbia this weekend to pick up 3 girls. Dyncorp leadership was 100% in bed with the mafia over there. And that was, again, a quote from Johnston, who had sued Dyncorp. Salon also reported, Johnstone recoiled in horror when he heard one of his fellow helicopter mechanics at a U.S. Army base near Tuzla, Bosnia, brag one day in early 2000, saying, my girl's not a day over 12. The bragging about a 12-year-old sex slave pushed Johnston over the edge. He said, I had to do something. There were kids involved. And at least 13 Dyncorp employees have been sent home from Bosnia for purchasing women or participating in other prostitution-related activities. But despite large amounts of evidence in some cases, none of the Dyncorp employees sent home have faced criminal prosecution. Johnston's RICO lawsuit was not the only instance of wrongdoing to come out of Dyncorp's UN peacekeeping contract in Bosnia. The Guardian wrote of Catherine Bolkovac. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I believe it's Bolkovac, from Nebraska, who was sacked by Dyncorp of Virginia, which peacekeeping police work. I just messed up that sentence completely. Anyway, Dyncorp of Virginia, who was tasked with peacekeeping in Bosnia. Bolkovac signed up with Dyncorp, providing American personnel for the UN. Bolkovac's story was later fictionalized in the film Whistleblower, starring Rachel Weisz. God, I am tripping over my words so badly today. I apologize. The Oxford Journal of Conflict and Security Law published an article which read, quote, UN military peacekeepers are increasingly being accused of human rights abuses while deployed on UN missions. These personnel are rarely held accountable for their conduct, given that they are granted immunity from criminal prosecution by the host state by a plethora of legal instruments, in particular, a status of forces agreement. So, essentially, they have immunity, unfortunately. And this is a paramilitary group that essentially has immunity. The contractors fell into a legal gray area between a broken Bosnian legal system and American military oversight. Washington University Global Studies Law Review also wrote, quote, UN peacekeepers and sexual abuse and exploitation, an end to impunity. The author, Elizabeth DeFice, wrote, quote, the United Nations stands accused of egregious acts of sexual abuse and exploitation committed by UN peacekeepers and civilian personnel. Authorities who claimed the Dayton Peace Accord put the men under Bosnian authority. So authorities claimed that the Dayton Peace Accord put the men under Bosnian authority while the UN affords legal immunity to peacekeepers. Culpability was further complicated by the international nature of Dyncorp and its subsidiaries, The Guardian explained. Although Dyncorp was an American company, Volkovac's contract was governed under the laws of England. Despite Dyncorp International's being located in Texas, Dyncorp Aerospace in Aldershot is a British firm, a British subsidiary of the US company Dyncorp. So it's very, very complicated. Dyncorp is basically split up into a little number of different arms or branches. And Ben Johnston eventually settled out of court, while Volkovac won her case against Dyncorp. Salon reported that both Johnston and his attorney said they viewed the settlement as a victory and as a vindication after 2 years of fighting the company. The New York Times related Volkovac's victory, quote, a British tribunal has ruled that a former member of the UN police force in Bosnia was unfairly fired after she reported to her superiors that colleagues in the police force used women and children as sex slaves in connivance with Balkan traffickers. The Telegraph also reported, quote, the tribunal stated it is hard to imagine a case in which a firm has behaved in a more callous manner. In the aftermath of Bosnia, the United States demanded heightened immunity for Americans serving as UN peacekeepers, as opposed to increased accountability. Dyncorp continued to receive contracts. The UN was implicated in further sex abuse scandals in nations where peacekeepers operate with immunity. In 2012, Reuters reported, quote, 2 UN peacekeepers from Pakistan have been sentenced to a year in prison for raping a 14-year-old Haitian boy. Several peacekeepers have been accused of rape in addition to the Pakistanis, in cases that have fueled public protest and demands that members of the UN force be stripped of their immunity and face trial in Haitian courts. UN peacekeepers were also reported to have been caught on video raping an 18-year-old Haitian youth. In The Guardian's article, Report Reveals Shame of UN Peacekeepers, they wrote, quote, embarrassment caused by the misconduct of UN forces in Haiti, Sierra Leone, Bosnia, Cambodia, East Timor, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, where troops were regularly having sex with girls aged as young as 12, sometimes in the mission's administrative buildings. The situation in Haiti was so serious that BBC reported Sri Lanka had promised to look into allegations that 108 of its UN peacekeepers in Haiti paid for sex, in some cases with underage girls. More than 700 peacekeepers in the Ivory Coast were suspended. Dyncorp was once again, after all of this, contracted to provide troops for the UN in Haiti during this period. In 2015, Rosa Friedman, senior lecturer at Birmingham Law School, wrote in an article published by CNN, why do peacekeepers have immunity in sex abuse cases? She explained, the problem is not new. Over the last 2 decades, peacekeepers have been accused of abuses in Liberia, Congo, Bosnia, Haiti, and personnel have forced women and children to have sex in exchange for food. They have trafficked women into UN missions and systematically raped them and have committed egregious acts of sexual violence. In 2011, Dyncorp agreed to pay the United States $7.7 million to resolve allegations that it submitted inflated claims for the construction of container camps at various locations in Iraq. In 2009, the Washington Post reported that Dyncorp was being forced to replace their senior managers after the State Department launched an investigation into the company's handling of an employee who died of a possible drug overdose. Dyncorp reportedly lost $1 billion. Dyncorp reportedly lost the $1 billion it was given by the State Department to train Iraqi police. Despite all of this, as late as December last year, Dyncorp received a $94 million new contract with the U.S. Navy. Dyncorp will facilitate, and this is what the Navy said of that contract, quote, Dyncorp will facilitate humanitarian aid, civic assistance, minor military construction, and contingency programs to support exercises and other initiatives. The numerous scandals embroiling Dyncorp over the years have exemplified McKinney's first question to Rumsfeld: why do these companies continue to receive government contracts? And that's the end of that article. I apologize that I'm stumbling over my words so badly today. I haven't looked at this article in a very long time. It's been almost a year since I wrote it. So I appreciate anyone and everyone who's listening. You can find me at Elizabeth, Leavos, on Twitter. And you can find Disobedient Media on Twitter at Disobedient News. Please visit our website. Read the articles that I'm reading to you all if you have time, and let me know what you think. I will attempt, as I said earlier, to get the broken video and the white noise and all of the other issues that I'm having right now sorted in the next couple of weeks. I'm doing my best to address that. Thanks so much, and I'm going to be streaming a couple more videos after this, so stick around if you like. Thank you.